send requests to, I'm sending requests to the host, so you'll have to give me permission.
And I gave it to you.
Okay, good.
All right.
Let's go.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dale. I am the host of the show Coffee Time Again, where we expose the truth. And today we're exposing the truth of math and the problems with math in today's society, which I totally agree there is a problem with. It's outdated, in my opinion, and it's also with our guest. His name is Craig, and I'm going to let him introduce himself to you a little bit, and he's going to talk about a little bit about why he is here, and that's to help us get this going. So, Craig, welcome to the show. Tell us about yourself.
Thanks, Dale. I appreciate it. I'm a math guy. I've been learning math and applying math and teaching math for 80 years, believe it or not. And I've written a book recently called How and Why Public School Math is Destroying the USA. And my name is at the bottom there, Craig Hane, CraigHane. And you go to that, craighane.com, and you'll learn all about me and get a free PDF copy of the book. And you'll learn about everything we're talking about, I believe, from this book. Now, public school math is destroying the USA, but today, thanks to modern technology, there's a program that saves it. And by the way, it's not the teacher's fault. The teachers are victims too. The schools are victims. It's the system that's bad. And thanks to 21st century technology, there is now an existing solution. Since about 2010, that's been the case.
Okay, what is the solution?
Well, I explain in this book, but the solution is there is, first of all, what determines success in math is the content you teach the students and the pedagogy, the way you teach it. And I explain in detail in this book what it is, but and I'm talking now middle and high school math. Elementary school math, most schools can deal with it and most parents can deal with it. I have a bunch of what I call Uncle Jack videos that show how I was taught. But where I really get involved is middle school and high school. Today, what I do, and this makes all students successful, and it's all online. Tutorial videos come off of Amazon Web Services or me. They're tutorial videos, so a student controls them. Exercises, notes, quizzes. The first thing I do is I teach them how to use a scientific calculator, the TI-30XA, about a $10 calculator. I teach them about half the things they need to know on it to do practical math. Then I teach them practical algebra and practical geometry and practical trigonometry, all three of those subjects, in about one semester for most students. It's all self-paced. It gives them great confidence. It prepares them for a technical career. And if they want to go on in math, it's a great foundation then to go on into my upper tiers.
Wonderful. As someone who's passionate about eliminating barriers to math education, what is your ultimate vision for future of math education? And how can schools, parents, and students contribute?
Well, today, any parent can buy their student our program that's online very inexpensively. And I believe that we have hundreds of homeschool parents doing it now. And I've even had a couple little private schools do it. I believe that ultimately our public schools will go to this route. It may not be my program. Maybe there'll be something better that comes out. But what that means is every student studies at their own pace, and it's interactive, and they move forward, and they always know what they're doing, and they've got the right prerequisites. And instead of today, in our public schools, I'm going to guesstimate that 90% of our students don't really learn math very well. They might, because of the horrible curve I talk about, they may pass math, but they get a B or a C or a D and they don't really know math. With my program, you learn it. Everybody gets an A. There's only one grade in math that counts. You either know it or you don't know it. So you get an A or you don't. And I have them study it until they do it. I believe public schools will eventually go this route, but it's going to be a total transformation from what they're doing today.
Okay. That's a good, because, I was taught the old traditional math, and I flunked it badly.
Virtually 90% of students that take math today, the way it's taught, it's been like this now for 50 years or 100 years, don't do well in math. And they get through it because of what I call the horrible curve I explain in my book. But that doesn't mean they learned it. That just means they got a passing grade. Well, that doesn't mean they learned anything. And then they hate it, and then they don't use it. And math is what I call God's language. And if you learn math the way I teach it to you, the practical math, it'll open up, I don't know, 1,000 different career paths you can take where you can make a really good living. in technical subjects. But I have a student, for example, just to give you an example. We had a student that had got out of the military, got injured in the military. He was going to be a career in the military, got injured, got out. Decided, well, I'll do welding. Couldn't get into welding school because he didn't know the math. He took my practical math I just told you about, one semester, boom, got into welding school, did great in it. Now he's got his own company, making real good money, having a great living. If he hadn't gotten over that math barrier, he wouldn't have gotten into it. I don't know what he would have done, but there are literally hundreds, maybe more technical careers you can do today, but it takes practical math to get into them and then learn them.
I spent 28 years as a chef, cooking as chef, and you'd be surprised how much math is involved in cooking.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of math. And here, if you learn my practical math is all you need for all these career technical fields. Now, if you're going into science and engineering, you need a lot deeper math, and I do that on my upper tiers. Okay. And I use a modern tool for that. If you're interested in science engineering, you take my program, you get into my there's 6 tiers altogether. You get into the upper 3 tiers, and I use a modern tool that revolutionizes how you do math for science and engineering. It's called Wolfram Alpha. And calculus, for example, goes from a difficulty level of 8 down to 2. Differential equations down to 2. So today, math used to be a big barrier for science and engineering. Mm-hmm. More kids out of it. Now it's no longer a barrier. Wolfram Alpha solves that problem.
Did you develop that or somebody else developed?
Oh, no. Steve Wolfram did. Steve Wolfram developed, he was a genius. He got his PhD in theoretical physics at age 20 at Caltech. He won a MacArthur Award. That was back in 78. He then decided to create a math programming language that would do things that no other programming language would do. And over 10 years, he did it, called Mathematica. That came out in 1988. Steve Jobs, who knew Steve Wolfram, was developing the next computer. He'd left Apple in 85. It's 88. They bundled them together, and it was the most powerful desktop computer in the world. Could do things you couldn't do with any other computer, desktop computer. Tim Berners-Lee over at CERN in Switzerland got one of them, and he used it to develop what's called the World Wide Web. The World Wide Web is because of Mathematica. Now, fast forward 30 years, and Steve Wolfram just made it more powerful. And he said, I think I can write a program in Mathematica that will solve any math problem. And you ask it in a kind of a natural language. And he did it. It's called Wolfram Alpha, and it came out, it's free in 2009. And I was beginning to put my program together about that time, and I saw that, and I go, oh my God, this is just a total game changers. And so starting in the upper tiers where I'm teaching science engineering, I use Wolfram Alpha. And I learned math better myself with it, even though I taught it manually the old fashioned way. And it's amazing. And do you use an iPhone?
Yeah, no.
Well, anybody uses an iPhone, there's a thing on it called Siri. That's based on Wolfram Alpha. That's an application of Wolfram Alpha. There would not be an iPhone today if it wasn't for Mathematica. And there wouldn't be a Siri if it wasn't from Wolfram Alpha. Okay. Steve Jobs used Mathematica then. There's all kinds of things in the iPhone that required that kind of programming. It's just amazing. So, yeah, and I explain all that, by the way, in this book.
I'm going to get the book. I'm going to go there and get that copy because, first of all, I want to read it. Second of all, my sister has an iPhone, and every time I turn around, she's asking me to do something with it, and I can't do it because I don't know iPhones. That'll help me.
Well, I must confess, I use an Android myself. I don't use, because the Androids are very powerful now, and I use them. Most of my family uses iPhones, but I'm a cheapskate, so I use an Android. I don't know where my phone is right now, somewhere.
Not laying around. If mine's being charged.
But anyway, no, anybody that is interested at all in math education for themselves or any family member, any friend needs to get this book and get a free PDF copy of it on my website. But by the way, if you go to Amazon and buy it, guess how much Amazon prints this book out? One copy and sends it to you. If you're in Amazon Prime, no shipping charge. 2 days later, you get it. Well, been a little longer during Christmas season, but normally 2 days. Guess how much this book costs?
$10.
$4.80. That's the cheapest they'd let me sell it for. They get all the money. I don't get a dime off of it or a penny off of it, but I didn't want it. But the point is, Can you imagine printing this book out? It's, I don't know, it's 170 pages,
Yeah.
all nice and bound, copyrighted,
Yeah.
everything.
I may do it that way. Is it an ebook, Audible? No, okay, because that's usually what I get.
No, it's not. What I've got in Audible, though, is on my own website. I've got how and why homeschool math can be vastly superior to public school math. That's on my website. It's free, and every chapter has a PDF you can read or a video you can listen to and watch. Mostly
Yeah.
listen to. That's the closest thing I've got.
Right, because I do a lot of Audible.
Yeah, probably can get it done one of these days with one of these new AI tools. I can probably get an AI tool that will create an Audible of this, but I haven't done it yet.
I just started using AI myself on a job search.
Yeah, we are too.
Yeah. You're talking here about Triad Math Tribe. You haven't mentioned that yet. I'm just curious, what is a Triad Math?
Okay, Triad Math Inc. is the name of my company.
Okay.
And when you get this book, you'll see it. It's published by Triad Math Inc. Copyright, blah, blah, blah. Okay. My math program is sold through Triad Math Inc. That's a corporation. And it's a 6-tier program, and it's all explained in this book in a lot of detail, syllabus and everything. And there's different ways you can buy it. But I also had a lot of students come to me over the years and say, you know so much more than math that's made you successful. You know, I'm 86 years old. I don't have aches or pains, and I've had lots of businesses and all sorts of things. And they say, what was it, just math? And I said, no, there's a lot more than math. There's a lot of wisdom you got to have. And I acquired wisdom tools from other people. So I now made videos on my wisdom tools. And there's a whole bunch of them, things that help me have a great life. And so I put together this Triad Math Tribe. And if somebody joins it, it's $30 a month, but the first 30 days is free if they don't like it. They get access to all 6 tiers of my math, and they get access to all the wisdom tools. They can also go out and recruit other tribe members and get paid to do it. So they can actually, if they recruit 2 or 3 members, they get it. They're basically getting it for free. But they pay 30, but then they get 30. And it's a tribe. I believe that any young adult that joins the tribe, it will improve their life in many different ways. Financially, it'll probably improve it dramatically, but many other ways too. How do you win arguments? How do you, it just on and on. There's so much in it. In fact, I got one wisdom tool that costs me personally millions of dollars to learn, and I teach it to them. So
Yeah.
maybe they don't have to go through what I did.
That's good stuff. I have been hearing this term for quite a while now, and I'm curious about it. I've had like 3 or 4 guests come on and they talk about tribes. What is that? I understand what the word means and what it is. Do you know the reasoning for so many people using that word nowadays instead of communities or whatever? They're using the word tribe.
Well, I'll tell you why I use it. I don't know about other people. I'll tell you about mine. First of all, we have a new president, Trump, and he has a vice president, J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance wrote a book several years ago called Hillbilly Elegy. Did you ever read it?
No.
Okay. I read the book when it came out. And he came from Appalachia. That's why I call it hillbilly. He was raised in southern Ohio by a strange family. Most of them failed, but he managed to go to the military and got straightened out. Then he went to Ohio State. Then he went to Yale Law School. Now, at Yale Law School, he was totally out of his element, and he never would have made it except he had a law professor named Amy Chua, and she helped him get through Yale Law School. Then he went on from there to become very successful. And I read that book, and I was impressed by the fact that Amy Chua had done this. She was a law professor. 2 or 3 years later, she wrote a book called Political Tribes. So I got that book, and I read it. And I thought, this is the way to study history. It's the way to study what's happening today. It's tribalism, and it's the sapient species. We've done that all of our civilization from thousands of years ago. And so today, when I look at Ukraine and Russia, I look at the tribes and which tribes are fighting which tribes, and tribes, sometimes they get along and sometimes they fight. And so I do all my analysis today with the concept of tribalism. Even I study history that way. And I learned that from Amy Chua. And I suspect a lot of people have read her book. And so now they probably talk about tribes for that reason. By the way, there's tribes of all sizes. You have your own personal tribe. When you're born, you got at least a tribe of two, your mom and you, because, you know, somebody's got to raise you when you're a baby.
Yeah.
And maybe you got maybe you got a mom and a dad. That'd be great. I did. In fact, I was really lucky. I had a mom and a dad. I was born in 1938, into the Great Depression. Nobody in my family had ever gone to college, but they were all hardworking people, very intelligent people. And I had an aunt and uncle that lived right next to it. My mom and dad worked, they were in war plants during World War II. My aunt Nina's Uncle Jack was a barber, and he taught me math at home. And I was the top of my math class up through the 8th grade because of Uncle Jack. My Aunt Ines read the Bible. Then I had a grandpa and a grandma. So I had I had a hell of a family.
Yeah, you
Right.
did.
Then I got lucky in high school, and I tell this story in my book in quite a bit of depth. I didn't do well in freshman algebra in high school, and I didn't get a very good grade. And I was told by my principal and my counselor that I would never go to college. Craig, you are not college material. You didn't do good in algebra in high school. You're not going to go to college. Long story short, I explain in this book, I had another great teacher, and she saved me. And then she got me with another great teacher who really saved me. And I ended up then teaching advanced theoretical math at DePaul University in Greencastle when I was 22 years old.
That's a good story there.
I got a PhD from Indiana University in theoretical math when I was 27 in 1966. So what I'm trying to do today for students is to do for them what my three great teachers did for me. And I can do it online now because of all the technology. My program is built on literally many, many billions of dollars of technologies that underlie it. I mean, for example, I do all my textbooks, my exercise and notes come from Amazon very inexpensively.
Mhm.
So you got a hard copy of them. My tutorial videos all come off of Amazon Web Services. So they're available 24/7 and stuff like that. And then I use Wolfram Alpha for my advanced science guys. And I use this calculator. By the way, this $10 calculator, very few people know how to use it. This is a very powerful calculator, and it would have been worth $1 million during the Manhattan Project. If somebody had had one in the early 40s during the Manhattan Project, it would have been worth $1 million because you can do things with it you can't do manually. Quick and easy. And I teach that.
I need to get your book because my math is so bad. Why do you believe traditional methods are no longer sufficient for the
Pardon me?
21st century?
I didn't hear you. What?
Why do you believe traditional methods of teaching math are no longer sufficient for the 21st?
Well, I explain it in great detail in this book, what's wrong with and the way it's taught in public schools is no good. First of all, I explain this there's 5 parts to this book. And in part 4, I explain the problem in 4 chapters in part 4. And the first thing is the classroom's unsolvable problem. You cannot teach a group of students in a synchronous way math because some of them can't keep up. Some of them are bored. Can't be done. I learned that the hard way. The year I taught high school in 1961, I taught high school, all 4 classes. I tell this story in a book. And so teachers are stuck with that. You need to do it one-on-one. It needs to be a tutorial. And teachers can't do that in a public school. The second thing is content. They put stuff in the high school math curriculum today that shouldn't be there. I mean, for example, if you took algebra, it depends on who taught it and what book you used, but they all have, the square root of 2, what kind of a number is it? It's an irrational number. What does that mean? Well, maybe you know, but here's the point. Do you care? Have you ever used it? And the answer is no, you've never used it. You don't know what an irrational number is probably, but they make you learn it. That's theory you don't need. And I could give you lots and lots and lots of examples. When I teach you practical algebra in my program, practical algebra, how many lessons is it? Do you know?
No.
Okay, I explain this, but 10 lessons, that's all. And they're all easy to learn. Anybody can learn them. 10, that's all you need. When you took algebra, they made you learn the quadratic formula. You've never used it. You don't remember it. You never probably understood it in the first place.
And here's the thing that I have learned to do some algebra doing spreadsheets, which are pure.
Sure. And so I teach you 10 lessons. That's all you need. Then in geometry, I teach you how long is something, what's the area, what's the volume. That's 19 lessons. And you have to use algebra with geometry together to do it. They go together. Now, the one thing they don't handle is angles. So then I have to teach you some trigonometry. That scares the hell out of most people.
Me especially.
But it's easier than the algebra and geometry. when it's taught the way I teach. Practical, 7 lessons, that's all. And now you know practical trig. And you get all that in about 1 semester. And no one fails it. And you get an A. There's only 1 grade in math.
That's what you said. You either know it or you do. That's a lot of stuff, though. If you don't, you know it, you know it. If you don't, you don't.
You got it. And so I believe the public schools will eventually come around, but the reason they don't is money. Every high school math textbook today is obsolete, without exception. Well, that's $1 billion industry.
Mhm.
And the teachers have been taught to teach that stuff.
Yeah.
Most of them can't do it very well. And when you ask, what did you learn in algebra, depending on what teacher you had. There's good algebra teachers, a lot of bad ones. I had bad ones. That's why I did poor in algebra when I was in high school. Did not do well in algebra in high school because I had a bad teacher. My senior year, I went, and I tell this story in the book, I went to DePaul and took college algebra with a good teacher, and I got an A.
My math teacher in high school was more interested in he was the basketball coach as well as the math teacher and the
Oh,
principal. And he was more interested in playing basketball than he was teaching.
he couldn't teach math. He probably didn't know math. My brother, I had a great geometry teacher, saved my life, Miss O'Hare. My brother had a different geometry teacher. He's 5 years younger than me. That was a coach, horrible. And my brother didn't go to college. Never even considered it. And by the way, we look alike. People think we're twins. He's just as smart as I am. I have a PhD in mathematics and was a math professor,
Yeah.
and he never went to college.
Well, being intelligent has no bearing on whether you go to college or not.
That's correct. That's exactly right.
Bill Clinton's book, they say this about counselors. You have to be after a bit of drunk to be a good counselor, and that's not necessarily true.
Oh, and by the way, my brother had a successful life. He
Yeah.
was very good at mechanical stuff and things like that.
Yeah.
And he's had a very successful life without college. In fact, today I have in my wisdom tools, one of them is, should you go to college? Most students today should not go to college.
I agree.
And
100% I agree.
And I explained that some should, and I explained if you're one that should go to college, and here's why you should, I tell you how to do it with incurring no debt.
That's would be marvelous if 2 billion people, college students, would
That's one of my 20 wisdom tools.
have to do without going in debt.
Number one, should you go? Most students shouldn't. Now, that doesn't mean they don't get an education.
No.
But so I tell them that, and then if you are going to go, how can you do it with no debt? And I teach you how to do that with no debt.
That works out very well. I went to college and incurred no debt, but I only took 3 semesters before I had to drop out for various reasons.
I went to college. I'd saved enough money way back then for 4 years of tuition because it was a lot cheaper back then than it is now.
Right, yeah,
Tuitions today are just crazy.
But there's a reason for that. That's the government.
Yeah, it's a lot of reasons for it. It's all bad.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I went to college and then I tutored people. I also applied math to some other things. I learned to play poker and bridge.
That would get you rich if you know how to do it, and I don't.
And I made money playing poker and playing bridge and tutoring kids. And then I on into graduate school. I ended up with a PhD and no debt.
That works wonders.
One called my family gave me money.
How has math education evolved with modern tools like scientific calculators and Wolfram?
Wolfram, what was the question?
How has education evolved with the modern tools like calculators and
Well, the problem with public school math, it hasn't. They still don't teach how to use a calculator. They let them use them, but they don't teach them. Most high school graduates can't do a lot of things with this calculator you need to do. And then they certainly don't teach Wolfram Alpha, but they don't even show me a high school program, a textbook that teaches you how to use a $10 scientific calculator. And by the way, these came out in the 70s and 80s. In the 90s, they came out with expensive graphing calculators, state of the art. As of 2009, graphing calculators are obsolete because of Wolfram Alpha. And so I tell people, never spend more than $10 on a calculator. This is the only calculator. Now, by the way, once you learn to use this calculator, then you'll probably use the one on your phone because you get scientific calculators everywhere. Your smartphone may have it on you. But this thing will do things a lot of others don't do. For example, fractions are wonderful. this calculator. And I just show people that. I say, okay, what is 2/3 added to 4/7? And the answer is 1 and 5/21, or 26/21, or 1.24. That calculator did all that.
Yeah. I have a calculator my ex-wife gave me back in the 80s, and I still have it. Somewhere in this room is that calculator. That's how often I use it.
Yeah, I know. Sam, I don't use I use my calculator all the time, and I use my phone all the time, and I use Wolfram Alpha a lot too, but that's because I'm doing math all the time. So anyway, what's the next question?
Your approach emphasizes practical math skills over traditional theoretical. Why is this distinction critical for today's students, professionals, and particularly in the STEM fields?
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding you, even though.
Approach emphasizes practical math skills over traditional theoretical methods.
Say again?
Your approach emphasizes practical math skills.
It does for the beginners and any struggling student. It always starts with practical math. That's a foundation for tier 1 and 2. Tier 3 is more math, some of which you might use, a lot you won't, get ready for the SAT and the ACT. And we're still just using the calculator. So that's all you can use on those. Now, are you ready for science and engineering? No. Tier 4, I now start using Wolfram Alpha, and now I go into all those subjects at a much deeper level for science and engineering. Manually, it's very difficult. With Wolfram Alpha, it's very easy. Then in tier 5, I do calculus. Calculus flunks more kids out of engineering school. The manual tools, integral calculus, by the way, is very difficult manually. Wolfram Alpha is very easy. And then in high school, they never teach differential equations, but that's the workhorse of science and engineering. And I teach that then in another semester. It's tier 6. And so what I teach today, and by the way, I have students go through all that by the time they're 16 years old. They're better prepared for MIT than any public high school graduate because they know math. I had a 17-year-old student who'd been through it, and he went to the Air Force Academy. His name was James Dooley out of Florida. And he went for an interview, and they interviewed him, and they put him in a class of juniors, some science class, just for him to see it. And he started talking to them about it, and he knew more math than they did. And they said, well, how did you learn all this math? You know more math than our juniors do in the Air Force Academy. He's 17 years old. He said, tried math.
STEM fields.
Pardon me?
STEM fields. What are they?
STEM what?
Fields. Fields.
Well, STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math.
Okay, I was wondering what that.
And by the way, in my book, I explain it ought to be they ought to put it in a different order. Math comes first, then you learn science, then you learn engineering, and then you learn technology. So it should be S-E-T, but they do it STEM.
Yeah, that's easy for them to figure out.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's an acronym. But the bottom line of it is math is the key to learning science and engineering, a lot of technology subjects too. And with the tool of the calculator and Wolfram Alpha, for technology, you can just all you need is a calculator if you're not going into science and engineering. If you're going into science and engineering, you need Wolfram Alpha, and you need calculus and differential equations, and you need all the pre-calculus subjects at a much deeper level. And by the way, Wolfram Alpha goes way beyond that then. That's, if you're going into science, then you're going to continue using Wolfram Alpha. And in fact, I've got if you go to my website, I also sell something called the Supra computer. And that is a computer that is based on the Raspberry Pi, and it has Wolfram Alpha built into it and Wolfram language. And you can't get that in any other computer. And so that's another thing that when I get a student gets ready to go into tier 4, I tell them, get a supercomputer. I make sure they can get one if I got to give them one.
Yeah. I'm interested, but not that much. I'm going to get your book. That I know, because I'm interested in finding out more about math, because I'm attempting to go back into my old field, which is drug and alcohol counseling.
Well, a lot of times to overcome a bad habit, and I had bad habits in my life. Would you call a quart of whiskey every day a bad habit?
I'd call it a little bit more strong than that, but yeah.
I was on regular days a quart of whiskey, and on party days more than that.
Yeah.
But I also took Valium. I also took Maalox because I would have stomach.
From the Maalox and the whiskey.
I also took suppositories for hemorrhoids.
Yeah.
And I smoked. And I was in my early 30s when it came to a head. And I had, by that time, Oh, I had two young children, excuse me. I had two young children and of course a wife. And I took a look at myself and I said, and I had panic attacks too. I had probably panic attacks. I got to change. And I read a book that saved my life called Man's Presumptuous Brain by Dr. Simeon. And the bottom line is, if you've got a bad habit, you've got to replace it with a good habit.
Right.
And the other bottom line is your brain, the way your brain operates, it controls your physiology.
Correct.
And he taught me that, and he was right. And I quit all those things.
Yeah.
I quit smoking. I quit drinking. I got rid of Maalox, didn't use Maalox. I have not had a stomach ache since then.
Yeah.
I don't have hemorrhoids. I was told I'd be operating. I don't. I have good health now. Right today, I'm 86 years old. I have no aches, no pains, no known health problems. My doctor can't believe it. She says, "Oh, I don't understand how, I just don't understand it, but you don't." And I only medicine I take. My blood pressure for many decades now, it goes up at night, comes down during the day. If it's too high in the morning, I take a pill and it comes down a little bit faster. Some mornings it's not too high, but it goes up and down every day. I personally think that's probably good for my health, although most doctors wouldn't agree to that.
Well, mine is the opposite. My heart rate, my blood pressure drops and my heart rate increases every night.
At night, you're just the opposite of me then.
See, I'm a recovered alcoholic. I've got 35 years. I recovered when I was 40. It's 39, almost 40. Just turned 39 when I recovered in 89. And I just woke up one day and detox and said, that's it, I'm done.
How old are you now?
74.
Yeah. So if you hadn't, you've been dabbing out, but you probably hurt your lungs with smoking, I'm guessing.
I didn't quit smoking till 2010.
Well, I was lucky. See, I quit when I quit all those other things, I quit smoking too.
I didn't quit smoking. It's the only thing I had left. I mean, I took heroin and alcohol.
Yeah. Well, better late than never, and you're still going, and that's good.
Quit cigarettes the same way. Just said, this is stupid. That's it. I'm done. And I quit smoking.
Yeah. Basically the same for me. And then I replace it with other habits that were good habits. I talk a lot about that in my wisdom tools. We all have addictions.
Yeah, correct. We do. I agree.
One of the worst addictions you can have, aside from the ones we talked about, another addiction I've had that's very bad is sugar.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had weight up and down problems all my life. And about 2 years ago, 2 years ago, I got a thing called Renpro, which lets me measure on a scale all my different things, including not only weight, but everything, a lot of other things. And I started using it, and I started going back to eat. I lived in the woods until I was 12 years old, and I ate healthy food, and I was skinny. Mm-hmm. When we moved to Greencastle, I started eating in restaurants, and I got fat. In 1 year, I got fat. Then I've had up and down the rest of my life, up and down. I was 240 pounds 2 years ago, and today I'm 185.
Marvelous.
But it's food. I'm not taking any kind of pills to good. No. I'm just eating healthy food.
Food, yeah. I'm living in an assisted living facility, and food here is.
So here's what I would urge your clients to do that are watching this video or the podcast. Go to my website, maybe read my book, but what you might want to do is click on the one above it, which is how to improve your life, and that'll take you to a page that talks about the Triad Math Tribe, and that will improve any young adult's life, maybe older people too, but certainly young adult. And they should go there and spend 2 or 3 hours watching different videos to understand it. Join the tribe. The first 30 days is free if you don't like it, and it should be worth an incredible amount, not only money to you over time, but a much better life.
I say I'm going to check it out myself. I just haven't been so busy lately. By the way, one of the things that I do, with your permission, which I usually ask at the end, but I'll ask it now since we're discussing your website, is I put a text right above your head that's saying your website. So every frame, they see your website. They don't have to write it down and memorize it. It's written, it's Craig, you pronounce your last name, Hain.com, and it's put it right above your forehead.
Okay, now Craig Hain.
That, and it's right above your forehead, right on every frame. So that way they get a good look at it.
Well, that's right. And then they go there and then everything is there. For example, there's a complete syllabus of my 6-tier program there. There's also the book I told you about where you can listen to the chapters instead of read them. That's free and it's there. There's free books there. There's all kinds of videos on math there that are free and on and on. And then how to go to the Tribe Math Tribe. All that's on my website, as is my email address. My email address is my name, Craig@Hain.com.
Yeah.
And my phone number's there. And people say, well, why would you put your email and your phone number? Well, why not? And people can contact me.
I got my phone number all over the internet. I don't worry about it.
No, I don't either. I do get a lot of junk calls, but it doesn't bother me. But my mission for the tribe, by the way, for the Tribe Math Tribe, I believe that there are literally millions of adults in the United States that would benefit from it tremendously, and that would improve the economy, and that their lives would improve, their families' lives, the economy would improve, then the society would improve. We got to eliminate war. My number one mission for the Tribe Math Tribe is to help eliminate war. War is going to, if we're not careful, it's going to destroy us.
Yes, it will. And we don't know when it's coming.
And if they think atomic bombs are scary, AI is a lot scarier than atomic bombs.
No joke. I mean, it's something I've learned for a long, long time that once we got it, we were in trouble.
We got it. We got it. And it's like any technology. There's the good and there's the bad and the ugly. And we have to make it good. And I think if enough people join the tribe and not only learn the math, but the wisdom tools, I think we can make it good.
Yeah.
And I see AI, frankly, as augmented intelligence. I think AI, like Wolfram Alpha, is a form of AI. It makes you more intelligent. It lets you do things you couldn't do otherwise. And so I think AI, I'm not too worried about it taking over the world.
No.
To make more people powerful. And if it makes good people powerful, we'll have a better world. But if it makes bad people powerful and they're not all set by good people, it can be horrible.
Yes, it could be. And it depends a lot on, I don't think the bad people are going to get too much involved in something like this because it's woke and they don't like the woke.
I hope you're right.
And that's my opinion. I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but
I think you're probably right. I think you're probably right because most of the
people are going to be the ones that eventually become using AI and improving on it and building on it. I just started the other day using it, so I'm not real familiar with it. I'm working for a guest that knows AI real well, so I can learn a few things.
Well, there are places you can go today that'll teach you AI tools and all that. I'm just beginning to get into it. I got some of the people working with me getting into it heavier than I am. And my oldest son is getting deep into it. In fact, we were talking about it today on the phone, and he said somebody was talking about where is it going to be most powerful going forward, and the answer was biology. And the reason is AI, for example, I don't know if you heard of AlphaFold, but AI, you take a string of amino acids and then they fold up into a protein with a certain shape. The DNA tells you which amino acids to put together in a string, and then it folds up automatically. Once it's folded up, we can see how it is, but we didn't know how to do it. Well, AlphaFold actually does it for you. Okay. They didn't think it could be done. Okay, now, here's the point. So you create a new protein by changing the amino acid structure. Then the question, what is that protein going to do? So they're going to have AI to figure out which proteins do what, and it's going to be a very, very, something humans can't do.
Yeah.
AI can do it. And so it's going to probably have a profound impact on our biology.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, Dr. James Tour, I've got a video on him. If you go to my free videos on my website, I got a bunch of free videos. Down at the bottom, I got a couple from James Tour. He is at Rice University doing nanotechnology, and they're developing little tools, nano tools that will go into a cell and drill a hole in it and kill it. So it can't resist it. It can't have an immune against it. And so I believe that we're going to have mechanical things that will take care of things like cancer, but it goes way beyond that. And I think that it's hard to know where we're going to be in 10 years.
Okay, so that was going to be my question, even though you haven't got it written down, is where do you see us in 10 years?
What?
Where do you see us with this try?
Well, it's impossible to predict because we don't know the new technologies coming. Nobody saw Chat GPT coming. In fact, what they did, they took a large learning model with a neuron net, they put some things in it, and it did things they don't know how it does it. And then they kept expanding it. Now the latest thing they're up to is ChatGPT 5, and they thought it was going to be artificial general intelligence. It's failed. It isn't. I don't think we're going to have AGI, artificial general intelligence. I don't think it's going to happen anywhere in the near future. One reason is I think our brains are much more complicated, and I talk about this in other videos. I've got a set of videos on my website called Doubting Thomas, craighay.com/Doubting Thomas. I just did it recently. And I was a Doubting Thomas for many years. I tell the story. And then science made me a believer because of science. But I believe that we're going to have tools that are going to cure all kinds of diseases, expand life, expand our intelligence. Right today, I'm addicted to my smartphone. I use it all the time. It makes me more intelligent because I can ask it a question, boom, I get an answer. I believe that that'll be wired into our heads. Most people don't want to think about that. I think that we'll be able to communicate much better with each other. And I also believe in the spiritual side of us. I believe William Tiller, Dr. Tiller, and I explain that in my other places, great scientists. I know there's a non-physical world. I know that I have a spiritual body, call it a soul, a spirit, whatever you want to, that's non-physical. It's in a part of the world that's beyond the speed of light. It's in a frequency domain. When my physical body dies, it goes on. Time, it isn't even in time and space. And I believe that. And I think that's what life is about. And we're just beginning to understand that. And Dr. Tiller is a great scientist that's kind of made me understand it better. Dr. William Tiller. And you'll see all that if you go to my website. I talk about all that stuff. That's all. If you go down to my website, I got all these videos. One of them is called Math Proves God Exists. And right next.
I'm a very spiritual person. I belong to the Episcopal Church and go frequently. I'm an Episcopalian, so I believe very strongly in the spiritual.
Well, you go read.
Oops. Not again.
A short history of science to lead up to it. Then I got stuff from Dr. Tour on it, and James Tour. He's a brilliant scientist from down at Rice University. By the way, he got his PhD from Purdue University, which is down the road from me.
Yeah.
I'm in Indiana.
Yeah.
And I got my PhD from Indiana University, and I taught in Terre Haute at Indiana State and at Rose Holman Institute of Technology. Purdue's a great engineering school. And, so anyway. Anything else?
I got one more question. How does Triad Math Foundation, and how does it address the gaps in current math education systems for homeschoolers, schools, and technical programs?
It's all explained in this book.
All of it is explained in the book.
Public school. You read this book, you'll understand all about what Triad Math is about, what it's done, where it came from. The first three parts are really, well, the first part is what's math like today in high school? What do you think it's like? I talk about it. Parts 2 and 3 are about my story.
Yeah.
Where did this come from? People want to know.
Yeah.
When I read a book and the guy's telling us, oh, how do you figure this out? Where does this all come from? So I tell it. Part 4 is what's wrong with public school math today. Part 5 is the solution, which is my 6-tier program.
Right.
You read this book, you'll know that'll answer that question completely. Then to prove it, you go join the tribe, 30 days for free if you don't like it, and you have access to everything for 30 days. And then it's $30 a month thereafter. But if you go get some other people to join, I pay you to do that, and pretty soon it's cost you nothing. So you got no excuse today. And by the way, when you join the tribe for $30 a month, if you're an adult, you get to train if you have children at home, you get to include them in training in math. You don't have to pay any extra for it.
I don't have children at home, but I know several people who do it. And I'm going to introduce it to a couple of my friends because I'm going to get the book, the PDF file.
Well, most people have family or friends that have teenage children.
That's what I'm talking about. I got friends these are not teenagers. The one I'm thinking about particularly, she's not a teenager. Her kids are not teenagers, but they can learn from this, I think.
Yeah, well, this is good for young adults, too, that want to improve their life.
Well, no, these are young kids. They're in they're 10, 12, I think.
Well, they're almost ready for my program, but The other thing I do is I have the Uncle Jack videos, which is how my Uncle Jack taught me math up through the 8th grade, and
Yeah.
I was ahead of all my classmates and everything up through the 8th grade. I explain it in this book. And
Uh,
those Uncle Jack videos are available too when you join the tribe.
okay, and I will be running out of time here. Had a very enjoyable conversation. I've really enjoyed it. You're a marvelous
My
guest. I
pleasure.
want to thank you very much for getting in contact with me so we could do this. And it will take me about, well, don't leave. Let me sign off so we don't get this into the video. But don't leave. I'm going to stop the video.